Yo guys, Visionist Gen here, bringing you the full Wolverine guide following the latest Season 3 update, breaking down all of his abilities, including his team-up, and addressing both his strengths and weaknesses. This is episode 22 of my new Hero Series guides, with all of the previous episodes on my channel. So, on that note, let's get right into it. So first things first, just as a general overview of the character, Wolverine is a high health target, a duelist with insanely high burst DPS capabilities, sustain, area of effect, and mobility, who makes for a perfect tank destroyer, because that's literally what he is. Someone who's an expert at removing high health targets. The more health the target has, the more damage he inflicts, with a 350 base health, with 7 meters per second movement speed, who's one of the fastest heroes in the entire game, who relies on his high mobility and evasive capabilities to be effective. Now his primary attack, known as the Savage Rage, is where he slashes with his adamantium claws for a claw strike, and this primary deals 15 damage per strike, and the damage is equal to 1.5% of that target's health. So obviously the higher the health, the more damage that he's going to deal, and with an extra 0.045% for each point of rage that he can build up, and he has a maximum sort of range of 3.5 meters, so limiting his potential to a various close quarters and close range character. However, at those close ranges, there's no better character at dealing high burst DPS, especially to high health targets such as Vanguards in this game. The first 3 strikes of the primary attack has a faster interval with 0.2 seconds between each of them, whilst the fourth one actually has a slow interval of 0.84 seconds, which basically means that the initial 3-hit combo is going to be more lethal and an initial deadly combo, so just bear that in mind. And as for the rage meter, I'll go through it in a bit more detail at the end of the video, because it's really important that you understand this aspect of his character, as well as healing factor and all those sort of other aspects that you just need to consider and understand before you want to be more effective at using Wolverine. Now, as for his R1 ability, the Undying Animal, where effectively he unleashes a fierce howl to briefly reduce any incoming damage, which lasts for 5 seconds, and provides him with a 40% damage boost and has a 16-second cooldown. Now, as for his L1 ability, this is known as the Feral Leap, where you basically leap like an animal to snatch the first enemy upon impact and smash them into the ground. Unleashing this ability will basically enhance his normal attack into Berserk Claw Strike for a brief period. Think of this as basically your entry ability, what you want to use to approach engagements, using this to engage your Berserk Claw Strike, dealing extra damage and separating enemies away from the group and isolating them for an easy kill, and no healing, of course. Now, this attack deals 35 snatch damage initially, and then an additional 35 damage for smashing them into the ground upon landing, stunning them for 0.75 seconds, and providing you with a 4-second Berserk duration, which provides an extra 6 damage per strike. Now, with this ability, you deal damage equal to 1% of the target's max health, so just bear that in mind in comparison to the 1.5% of the primary attack. However, with an extra 0.035% for each of the point of rage that you will build up, and a 3.5 meter range as well. So again, close quarter ability. However, with the rapid hits of 5.88 per second, which basically means you can deal an insanely high burst DPS with this ability, and has a 12-second cooldown in between uses. But having this in your back pocket to sort of flank around, pill someone into your own group, and then all of you sort of work on eliminating them really quickly is the most effective way at sort of snatching them and isolating them away from their group. And this is, as I said, an entry ability, something you want to rely on to start the combo off, build up your rage meter really quickly, and then also using the healing factor and stuff like that later on, which I'll go over in more detail. Now, as for the L2 ability, when combined with this, his Vicious Rampage ability, the L2, which is a movement-based ability that is basically used to dash forward and unleash a claw strike for up to 7.5 meters away, dealing 15 damage per strike and deal damage equal to 1.5%, as again like with the primary, for the target's max health, and with an extra 0.045% damage for each point of rage that you build up, just like with the primary attack. Now, as for the passive, this is where it gets a bit more interesting, and also a bit more of a lack of understanding that players don't really have, is where you need to understand his regenerative healing factor and the Berserk Rage and the rage aspect of this character. So, starting with the passive one, this is the regenerative healing factor, where effectively you begin to heal with a hefty bonus health, shaking off all debuffs, and after a short moment of time, any remaining bonus health then morphs into a one-off instant heal, but depletes all of his rage, and any assist that you are engaged in, any KOs reduce the cooldown between uses when it kicks in. So firstly, you can heal for anywhere between 150 to 300 health, which of course does increase the damage output with the more rage you have as well. And this passive ability has a 3 seconds bonus health duration with a 1-to-1 bonus health to healing ratio, which has a 90-second cooldown. However, as I mentioned, for every knockout engaged in, you reduce this timer by 10 seconds. So any assist or kill that you get, you'll bring this down. So the regenerative healing basically starts sooner. So it almost encourages you and incentivizes you to stay in the mix, stay chaotic, and try and deal damage to as many enemies as possible, because you're going to get your regenerative healing kicking in far sooner by doing this. And that is basically the way you want to kind of play this character, as well as building up your rage meter, which is the second passive ability, the Berserker Rage, where the rage builds up when Wolverine attacks or takes hits, boosting the damage of his claw strikes and the bonus health of his regenerative healing factor. So as I mentioned, 150 to 300 bonus health depending on how much rage you have built up. And then as for the next part of this, you just need to understand there is a couple different aspects to the actual Berserk Rage and how much damage you inflict and so on. So just starting with the initial one, with 100 maximum rage, with each claw strike, so the primary attack or the feral leap, the L1 ability, you can build up 10 rage for each hit that you will get with this. And then with the vicious rampage ability, the L2 dash, you gain 15 rage for enemies hit. With the Berserk Claw Strike, you gain 5 rage per hit, but of course you have a faster hit rate. And then with the ultimate ability, you gain 25 rage for each enemy knockback, but also you gain 5 rage per hit taken as well, so just bear that in mind. So again, it encourages you to stay in the chaos and try and be evolved as many kills and engagements as possible. So as you can see, there's lots of background understanding where required in order to maximize Wolverine's potential and his effectiveness, which a lot of players don't really understand. They just think you get up close and you spam abilities, but they don't really know how to maximize his sustain, his stay alive ability, and also his damage output as well. So just finally, with the ultimate ability, this is known as the final stand, where you knock enemies ahead, basically airborne, and spiral through the air, sweeping all enemies along in your path and delivering this devastating impact upon landing. This ultimate has an 8-meter radius, dealing 50 damage on impact and deals damage equal to 10% of the target's max health, with an extra 0.3% damage of each point of rage that you have. So stuns them for 0.5 seconds and costs only 2,800 energy, which for the most part is relatively cheap in my opinion, especially considering how much you need to be involved with the action and how much damage you're going to outlay and stuff like that, which means you're going to get this ultimate fairly quick if you know how to play this character. And then also, as for the team ability, his team up with both Hulk and obviously the Thing is more of a gimmick in my opinion. It's not that much of an effective or cool ability, but can be used in good areas like an entry into a team fight and so on, where you can get backline, peel someone important back to the team, and then isolate them so that they have no healing or that they can quickly removed and so on. But other than that, it's just pretty much more for the aesthetic and making it look cool than it actually being effective, because for the most part you need your teammate, whoever's playing that Vanguard, to be aware that you're trying to do this maneuver, or has to be ready right at the start of the game and throw you into a good area in order for it to be effective. But for the most part, this ability has a cooldown for this ability of 3 seconds when effectively you're not hurled, or if you are hurled, it then has a cooldown of 15 seconds before you can be thrown again effectively. But in summary, Wolverine is a great character. He's a strong duelist all round with high burst, close quarter DPS and evasive abilities and sustain, but of course lacks range, and in metas where there's aerial heroes or flyers, he will be less effective. Also, if the enemy team has just one tank, he's also less effective, as he's the best tank destroyer in the game and thrives against a 2-tank setup. But also, if the other team has a strong counter dive setup with pennies, traps or Namor squids, I have found in my own experience he is less effective. But for the most part, he is a really strong character. You just have to understand the passives of this hero to be the most effective and high damage potential version of this character. So the regenerative healing factor and the Berserk Rage. And then for the most part, you're going to have a really fun time because, again, he is one of the best at his role. He's a specialist hero, unique for basically being a tank destroyer, so just bear that in mind. But anyways, guys, there you have it. That's the full guide on Wolverine. If you guys have enjoyed the video, as always, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know down below if you have any comments or suggestions or tips or tricks that you've learned along the way with using Wolverine to help any newer players or myself in going forward. I'm Vision SGN. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.